let's get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat. We have a
This is so awesome.
We are an open culture that believes
actually
in
a big
importance of
piece
What is that process that a developer, or let's say,
as the Kubernetes ecosystem really boomed.
Hello and welcome to this week's Ask an OpenShift Expert Office Hours. I am Andrew Sullivan, and I am sadly not joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Jonny Rickard. Jonny is doing amazing things at one of our customer sites today. Actually, I think he's been there for a couple of days because he's been messaging me saying that he is jet lagged and just all kinds of things. So hopefully things are going well. Hopefully he's having a good time getting away from the house for a little bit. With that being said, we are welcoming back some folks from a few episodes ago. So episode 166, we had some of the Trusted Artifact Signer team on, and we talked about a number of things, but unfortunately we ran out of time. And so we promised we would bring them back in order to talk about the rest of the things that are going on there, and that episode is today, where we'll be talking about Conforma. So before I go into top of mind, Vita, if you wouldn't mind kicking off introductions. Uh-oh, we might have caught him. Maybe his headphones aren't working like we thought.
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. Are you there, Vita? Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah. I can. I had the live one also on, so I was hearing double.
You're hearing it both, yeah.
Yeah. So I was I was just typing on the private chat, hey, sir, and then I realized me. Oh, so we're just having hello. Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, back on the channel, and Veda Shankar. I'm the product manager for Trusted Artifact Signer.
Yeah, thank you.
Over to
Stefano.
you, Stefano.
Hey, everybody. I'm Stefano Pentasuglia. I'm a software engineer in the Conforma team.
Thank you. And Joe.
Hi, I'm also a software engineer on the Conforma team.
I love it when we have engineering folks on the stream because y'all are always so much fun to talk to because you know so much about all of the things. Like I love internally when I chat with the engineers because usually I'll ask questions and y'all send me like links to the code. And it's like, oh yes, it does this. And then you send me a link and it's like, here's the exact code inside of GitHub that shows me exactly what it is. And then I have to remember, OpenShift is a lot of Go. So then I have to remember Go. And I'm an admin. I am not a developer. So sometimes it goes better than others. But and Vita, I have done that. I can't tell you how many times. Back in the early days, I used to have both YouTube and Twitch up. Mm-hmm. And I would forget that the audio is playing, and then I'd end up hearing myself 3 times, which was always alarming and confusing, to put it mildly. So, yeah. So I do have, for anybody who hasn't watched the stream before, if you're new here, or even if you're been here many times, we do have a couple of top of mind topics. So usually the way that this goes is at the beginning of the stream we cover some things that are just top of mind, some things that we've encountered since the last stream. Sometimes we do follow-ups to previous streams. We don't have any of those today. After that, we will be talking about Conforma during today's stream. At any point in the stream, feel free to ask any questions that you have here in chat. Doesn't matter what platform you're on, you will be able to chat in that platform and it'll get resent across all of the others. We're happy to answer those questions to the best of our ability. And that includes if it's things not about today's topic. If you have any questions about OpenShift or any of those things, please don't hesitate to ask those. We may not know the answer, but we will do our best to get those answers. As Jonny and I like to say, we are not experts in all of the things, but we know experts in most of the things. And so we try our best to track down those right folks. And worst case scenario is we follow up next week with an answer to that. And of course, we do appreciate if you also want to send us an email. So not everybody watches our stream live. If you're not watching us live, or even if you are and you just don't want to speak up in chat, feel free to send us an email. You can reach me at Sully, S-U-L-L-Y, at redhat.com, or Jonny, J-O-N-N-Y, at redhat.com. We'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Top of mind topics. I've got 2 things for this week. So one, I've been seeing it's been like a couple of years since I've seen this really crop up, and now out of the blue, over the last month or so, I think I've responded to questions about it at least half a dozen times, and that is updates. So in particular, what I've started to see is more folks asking questions about, hey, I want to upgrade from 4.18 to 4.20. And if you look in the upgrade path tool, right, it'll tell you to go from 4.18 dot something to 4.19 dot something to 4.20 dot something. And what's happening is I think folks are looking at that and they're not paying attention to the dot something, the Z-stream release. So they just go to the latest Z-stream. And what happens is we can end up with those being, they're not out of sync, but they're not in order either. So what do I mean by that? OpenShift 4, currently all of the supported versions, and I'm going to pick on RHTAS here for a moment because it's usually the easiest one to understand. It's all based on RHTAS 9. So it doesn't matter if you're using OpenShift 4, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, it is all RHTAS 9 underneath the covers. And all of those RHTAS 9 packages are all the same across all those different versions. What changes is the Kubernetes version that's inside of there. So for Kubernetes version, let's say that 4.20 is Kubernetes version 1.33. 4.19 is 1.32. 4.18 is 1.31, and so on and so forth. So the RHTAS release is going to be the same across all of those. It's the Kubernetes and the other OpenShift things on top of it that change within there. So what can happen is if I'm on 4.18, and I'm going to make up numbers, .102 today, that might be the same RHTAS packages that are in 4.19.52 and 4.20.2. But if I go to 4.18.103, now I'm using a version of RHTAS that's newer than what's in the package for 4.19. And I can't revert those packages. We don't, OpenShift and Kubernetes is a fail forward process, so we don't test going backwards necessarily. And so what happens is you have to wait until that next version that you want to go to, so 4.19. whatever, catches up with that 4.18 Z stream that you're on for all of those shared common packages inside of there. So what I'm really getting at here, this is my very long-winded way of saying, I don't mean to sound rude in saying this, but pay attention to details when it comes to that upgrade path tool, and make sure that you're following those Z streams precisely. Because you can end up in a situation where, I was on 4.18.10, it told me to go to 4.18. I don't know, I'm throwing out numbers, 4.18.20, I did that, now I made the leap to 4.19, but I just chose 4.19. latest, and now I'm ahead of where 4.20 is. And so now I have to wait a week or two for 4.20, the Z-stream process to catch up. So good news is, if you end up in that scenario, you have a couple of different options. The easiest one is just wait. Eventually, especially if you're using a stable channel, you will end up where the following Z-stream will catch up and you'll be able to upgrade. I sympathize that maintenance windows are sometimes a pain, and that doesn't always work out. So another option would be to use a fast channel. Sometimes the fast channels, so using a number, or making up numbers again. So I'm on 4.19.20, and 4.20.10 is not, right, it's not letting me do that upgrade. If I go to 4.20 fast, maybe 4.20.11 is there already, and I could do that upgrade now. Fast is a fully supported channel. Those upgrades are fully supported. If something goes wrong, you can pick up the phone and call us. So you're good there, so long as you're okay with being on a fast channel. Once you get to 4.20, you can switch back to stable, and everything will catch up. I would not recommend going to candidate. So candidate releases are unsupported when you go there. Just switching to the candidate channel doesn't make your cluster unsupported, but if you go to a candidate release that's not also at fast or stable, that yeah, so that's kind of the two options that you have if you end up in that particular scenario. So the only other thing that I have, and please don't hesitate to ask questions about that if you have any, or if you've encountered that scenario, please don't hesitate to reach out. Of course, the support folks are also happy to help. If you find yourself in that scenario and you need help immediately, open a support case. They'll walk you through the various options as well. The last thing that I have is just upcoming episodes. So next week, and I thought I wrote this down, and it turns out I didn't, so I have to look at my message from Jonny. Next week we have AI/ML workloads on OpenShift with James Harmison and a couple of other folks coming on to talk about that. I think the week after that, or maybe even the next 2 weeks after that, we don't have a guest, or we have a guest. I'm not really sure what they're going to be talking about. So worst case scenario is Jonny and I get to do the Jonny and Andrew show. We've been talking about doing some install stuff, going back, 5 years now, and doing some install stuff. So we might cover that if we're able to. And then in, I believe, 3 weeks, yes, 3 weeks, March 25th, that is the week of KubeCon, so we will not be streaming that particular week. So at least one, maybe two guests coming up over the next 3 weeks. One episode where it'll be Jonny and I doing something here together. And then after that, we'll be taking a brief break for KubeCon and all the fun stuff that'll be happening there. I should, Jonny told me that I should also give a plug for Commons. So I think Carolyn is on PTO this week, but she's organizing the Commons event there for this particular KubeCon session. If you happen to be there, please stop by Commons. You don't have to have a KubeCon ticket. You don't have to be registered for KubeCon to go to Commons. Anybody can show up and be able to go there, I think, so long as they have space. So if you're in the area and happen to want to stop by and say hello, I believe Jonny will be at Commons along with a whole host of other folks that'll be there. Okay, I've rambled on long enough. Y'all have been very patient, both the audience as well as our lovely guests. So again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask those questions or any thoughts, comments, etc. that you have at any point in time. And with that, Vida, if you want to kick off and...
Sure, thank you. Yeah, let's first share the screen and... Okay, awesome. Yeah, so as you mentioned, Sully, in our previous session, which was episode 166, we talked about securing the software supply chain using Red Hat Trusted Artifact Signer, which is an on-premise deployment of the 6-door service. By the way, the Trusted Artifact Signer operator is available on the Operator Hub on OpenShift. And so we focused, if you look at this diagram, we focus on the build phase, how we integrate Trusted Artifact Signer into the CI pipeline to automatically sign the created image, generate a detailed software bill of materials, also known as SBOM, and create the provenance records, which basically contain all the details about how the image was built. So this could be your details on the build pipeline, the GitHub repo that was used, etc. Now, we then create attestations based on this SBOM and the build provenance. So when the image is copied to the container registry, you will actually notice that it's accompanied by a .sig and a .att file. These are the signature and the attestations for the image. And of course, you can have multiple signatures because in your pipeline, you could have different personas or service accounts signing it and creating other attestations also. So these are stacked. Now, today, what we'll focus is the deploy phase. So this is where you have an image, it has signatures, it has attestations. So we want to make sure that nothing changed, the integrity of that image is still maintained. So that's done with the signature verification. Now, in addition to that, we need to evaluate the attestations to validate who did what, when, and whether the image was built on an approved system. So these rules can be captured in policies and are easily automated in a CI pipeline. And they are pipeline agnostic, so it supports virtually every CI pipeline. So for this, we use a tool called Conforma, a policy-driven workflow tool which is included when you deploy the trusted artifact signer operator. So, so now I'm going to hand it over to Stefano, who is the Conforma expert, and he's going to get into the nitty-gritty of how this works, and we have a great show for you. So over to you, Stefano. Thank you.
Thanks, Veda. So, thank you for your great overview on the concepts of secure supply chain and trusted software supply chains. Now let's take a closer look at what Conforma is and how it fits into that picture. This is what we will cover today. I will first give a quick overview of Conforma, explaining what it is and how it works. Then I will showcase its capabilities with a hands-on demo. And finally, I will hand over to Joe that will show how to leverage AI to easily implement your own policies. So let's start with a bit of background. Conforma originated within Conflux, which is Red Hat's new internal cloud-native software factory. It is essentially the engine that we use to build, sign, and ship the images you see in the Red Hat ecosystem catalog. And it was designed with the security-first mandate in mind. So it provides out-of-the-box SLSA Level 3 compliance, hermetic builds, and vulnerability detection. It also optimizes. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Stefano. I don't know that that's. I'm not aware of all the marketing that we do. I don't know if that's something that we talk about often, which is like this is literally our own build process as well. Like, this is This is how we like build, test, ship, verify, validate our own packages for OpenShift and other things. So when people are curious about like, hey, like what is the software supply chain for OpenShift? Like, this is how we do it.
Definitely.
And the good part is, Sully, we share all the policies that Stefano is going to be talking about. So this is all open source, and so they can also kind of look how we validate these packages as they are built. What are the policies they're using, and anybody can just take them and use it. Same thing also. So it's a very and you'll hear more on Conflux, which is the name of the project. That is our internal build systems. As you mentioned, we build millions of packages, all kinds, like RPMs, container images, binaries, and all SLSA Level 3. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how often we talk about that, but that's a phenomenal point.
Exactly. You just need to
agree.
have us more often on the show.
I've said before, anytime.
So it also has this cool thing where it optimizes the release process to build once and release everywhere. So reducing the redundancy in the build phase. And this greatly speeds up the time to market of our products. So it sounds like we have it all figured out with Conflux, right? We are generating all this beautiful metadata that help us secure our pipelines. So we're good, right? But the hard truth is that generating data is only half the battle. And we have to remember that compliance is not security. So we have to actually validate the contents of that metadata if we want to make them, turn them into a real-time defense system. And to make things even more critical, we have to deal with scalability. As Veda said, we have thousands of images. We ship thousands of images with Conflux. So manual security audits are impossible. So we had to find a way to turn this passive evidence into an active release gate. And that's why we built Conforma. Conforma is an open source tool that is designed to sit exactly in the gap between the artifact generation and the production deployment. And it works by consuming the artifacts generated by the supply chain and evaluating them against a policy that is defined as a code. And finally, it outputs a clear pass-fail signal that can be used as a blocking gate in the pipeline. It also generates a human-readable output to make the violations that are produced, the policy violation produced during the evaluation of the artifacts clearly understandable and to facilitate their remediation. And last but not least, it is designed as a lightweight CLI tool that can be easily integrated into a pipeline, where it can serve as a blocking gate. This is how it works at a high level. The CLI takes as input the artifacts generated by the pipelines, such as image manifests, image signatures, SBOMs, salsa provenance attestations, CV scans, and basically whatever you want to validate, and evaluates them against a policy, which is a set of rules that enforce a variety of compliance checks against these artifacts. The policy is highly flexible because it can be adapted and parameterized using a policy configuration file, so that the same policy can be used with different security profiles for different environments. And finally, the CLI produces this clear pass-fail signal that can be used to gate your pipeline. And basically, it can prevent uncompliant artifacts to be released. We are using Conforma on the majority of our builds in Red Hat, since it is part of Conflux. And our goal is to use it on all of our builds. You can find the complete list of checks that we enforce, that we run on our builds at the link below. In the meanwhile, in this slide, I've highlighted the most interesting ones. So for example, we have base image checks that ensure that the base images that we use to build our containers are trusted and that they come from trusted registries. SBOM checks that ensure that the SBOMs are compliant. So we check the packages listed in the SBOM are allowed, that they have allowed attributes, and so on. Then we run several checks against salsa provenance attestations to enforce salsa security levels. We have checks that ensure that the software isn't affected by any CVs, and checks that ensure that the software is being tested and that all the tests are passing. But that's enough talk. Let me show you Conforma in action. So let me share the terminal. Here we go. So let's start with a simple example first. Suppose we want to validate a simple JSON file that contains a list of animals belonging to different species. We write our first Conforma rule. It is written language that is a declarative query language that is designed specifically to write policies. And we define some metadata for the rule that basically describes what the rule does and what are the steps to fix the violation. Then we have at line 10, this deny contains result that is the default pattern to define a violation in Conforma. And then the rule simply iterates the list of animals and throws a violation if any snakes are found in it. So basically what we're doing with this rule is to forbid any snakes from being on the list. Then we have this, oh, maybe there is my name on the screen share.
Yeah, I'm trying to remove that. Let's see, I can turn off our names, but it turns off our names on all of our titles.
Oh, okay.
Not on the screen share, which is, there we go.
Oh, okay, great. So here we have the policy configuration file that in our case simply includes the rule that we just implemented. And that's it. 2 files is all we need to run Conforma. It's that simple. So let me show you what's the CLI command. This is one. ECValidate input is the main CLI command. Then we pass the input JSON that we want to validate, the policy YAML file that is the configuration that we're using for this validation, and then a couple of optional arguments to improve the output readability. Then I added this last line that will show you how the command produces a clear 01 exit code. So let's run it. And this is the output. You can see that the evaluation failed with one violation because our list contains one snake. And the reason of the violation clearly points out which one is the animal throwing the violation, along with the solution steps needed to remediate it. You can see that the exit code is non-zero because the validation failed. Now let's suppose we have 2 snakes in the list instead of 1 and see how the Conforma output changes in this case. Now we have 2 violations, 1 for each snake. And again, the reason is showing exactly which snake is throwing the violation. And this further facilitates the remediation of each violation specifically. Again, the exit code is still 1 because the validation is failed. So let's try to fix our violations by transforming our snakes into rabbits and run Conforma again. Now the validation is successful. You can see that the no snakes rule shows success and that the exit code is 0. Sometimes we don't want to straight up deny something, but just want to warn the user about potentially bad situations. So for example, in our case, we are okay with cats and dogs being in the same list, but we want the user to be aware about potential fights. So let's write a warning rule. It is very similar to what we did before. Again, we have the metadata that describes the rule and the solution steps. And then we have this pattern, warn contains result, that is the pattern to define a warning in Conforma. And then the rule simply checks if there are both cats and dogs in the list. And if that's the case, the warning is thrown. So let's run Conforma again with this new rule. Here we go. You can see here that the validation is still passing and the exit code is 0, but the warning is showing up in the results list. This is because the warnings are non-blocking. That is different from violation that instead will fail the validation. Again, the warning is showing here all the metadata we defined before and the steps to remediate it if the user wants to fix it anyway. Another useful feature for Conforma is the possibility to include or exclude specific rules from the evaluation. So for example, in our case, we are okay with cats and dogs being in the same list because we know that our cats and dogs get along well with each other. So we add this section to our policy configuration where we exclude the cats and dogs rule from the evaluation and then run Conforma again. You can see that the warning has disappeared from the results list because now the rule isn't being evaluated anymore. Now, that's it for the first demo. Let me show you something a bit more interesting, and let's validate an SBOM. As Veda said before, an SBOM is basically the list of ingredients of your software package. I created a sample SBOM in SPDX format. Here is the first lines. And this is the list of packages that that is present in my SBOM. So you can see sample my app legit package and one package that simulates a package affected by a critical vulnerability. So let's go. Just a moment. What happened? No, just a moment.
It's the spirit of Jonny with us. Jonny's demos are notoriously.
Yeah. Anyway, the demo effect always hits. No? Okay, here we go. So this is the list of packages. And here is our new rule to validate the SBOM. This is slightly more complex than the previous ones, but basically what it does is to iterate the packages in the SBOM and check if any of them is included in a user-defined list of disallowed packages that is found in this rule data packages key. And if any are found, the violation is thrown, and the failure message clearly points out which one is the package, the disallowed package. For this rule, I admit I cheated a bit because I used a library of helper functions that we in Conforma have created to help navigate the main types of attestations. Then we have our policy configuration, where we again import our rule and the library. And we have this new section, rule data, where we can disallow the package version that is affected by the vulnerability. So let's run Conforma again against this SBOM. And you can see that the validation actually failed because Conforma correctly detected that a disallowed package is present in the SBOM, that is the critical CVE at version 1.2.3. So basically, Conforma is preventing us to release an SBOM that is uncompliant to our policy. So let's suppose now we fix our application by bumping the vulnerable package to a new major version that is not affected by the vulnerability, and that we regenerate the SBOM so that it reflects the change. So you can see here that now the package is at version 2. So we can run Conforma again now, and you can see that the validation is now passing because the package is no longer disallowed. So we are safe to release our application again, being sure that it is compliant to our policy. And that's it from me. I will hand over to Joe now that will talk us about Conforma and AI.
Stefano, I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
So Conforma, what we've been using it for here is to build a package, right? So Red Hat is building a package. We are putting it onto Quay.io or something like that. And presumably we also make available the various policies and other, like the SBOM and stuff like that. As a customer, could I use this in my own environment, sort of the other direction, which is like, can I take this Red Hat package and the SBOM associated with it and use Conforma as a gating factor for deploying that into my environment?
Yes.
Is that a different tool and I'm mixing things up, or?
Let me restate your question. You are asking if you want to release a Red Hat package and have it validated with Conforma before you deploy it?
Yeah, so like it's, I'm trying to think of a hypothetical situation here. So let's say that yesterday Red Hat, we published a package. Today, a new CVE is found and it is added to my company's list of CVEs that we don't want to ship. And then tomorrow, I take the Red Hat package from yesterday, and is there something that can, like Conforma, in my deployment pipeline that I can use in order to check for those things before they go out?
Can I chime in?
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah, unless Stefano, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can give my 2 cents. I'm not sure if we publish the SBOMs and attestations for the packages we release, but if we do so, then yes, you as a customer can run Conforma against those and validate, and run your own validation with updated data, or even with your own policy that may be stricter than ours.
Yeah, actually, for you must have heard like a couple of projects that are coming up, like the Hummingbird for the for the basically hardened image, right? Zero CVE hardened container images. There's also Project Kalunga for all the Python packages. So yes. So we have been creating these SBOMs, we have been creating these attestations internally, but I think with some of these newer offerings, you will see those accessible to everybody, the SBOMs and the attestations. So one of the things in Conforma, even though like Stefano mentioned that we are validating the policy and saying, hey, does it include this version of, say, Golang or some other in this image? one of the first things it does is who built that attestation, who signed that attestation, because somebody could have gotten in, and even though the image might have contained version 1.5, they could have gone and edited the SBOM, right? So one is the validity of the SBOM itself. So you are verifying the signature of who created that SBOM. And so for that, you would need a Red Hat's public key. If it is signed with the Red Hat key, you need that public key to kind of verify the attestation. And yes, and then if you copy this policy, which is available on conforma.dev, you can actually run the same EC command that Stefano mentioned and get the pass or fail. So long-winded of saying, yes, you can use EC in your pipeline as a customer to validate a Red Hat package and the accompanying SBOM and the attestations, right? The attestation, which includes the SBOM and the build provenance and all that stuff. Did I answer, Sully? Did you?
I think so, yeah. And I pulled a couple of links for the two things that you mentioned: Project Hummingbird, which is the 0CVE images, as well as the Red Hat Trusted Libraries, which I believe are dev.
Yes, that's dev preview. That's Project Kalunga. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
So for anybody who's curious, you can find out more information about those at those links. But yeah, I think you did answer my question. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You sounded very doubtful, so that's why.
Well, so I admit that this is all fairly foreign to me. I make no secret of, like, my background is in administration and stuff like that. I usually operate a layer or three below all the stuff that's happening here. But I like, to me, having awareness of this and having an understanding of it as an administrator is super important. I want to know what's happening in my platform. And in particular, I want to know, like, how, for lack of a better word, trustworthy, right, the things that are running inside of there are. And my stance for years and years and years, for anybody who's known me like a decade plus, has been like, dev and ops, even before DevOps was a term, like, it's two sides of the same coin. And like, I was an old storage guy, right, and who became a virtualization guy, and my thing was always like, hey, like, creating every 9 that we add to the infrastructure is exponentially more complex and more expensive. So and at the same time, every bit of availability and redundancy and resiliency that we put into the application is exponentially more expensive and more complex. Like, what if we worked together? And so, like, things like this of, like, security is exactly the same way, right? The platform and the application need to be working together in order to provide that robust, security in today's conversation, but availability and resiliency and scale and performance and all of those other things. It very much has to be a collaborative thing.
In fact, in many of the customer meetings that I go to, I always say, like, you could use Conforma, the EC validate that Stefano just showed you, quite easily, because not only are you validating the SBOM, but say you have a third party who's creating a package, and you, as, say, a telco, you have this package, you're the admin who wants to import it, bring it over. You can actually also create an attestation with your signature. So that way they'll say, oh, Sully actually examined it. He ran the tests. And now, you can use an EC policy or a Conforma policy to kind of validate it before it gets copied to a repository for, runtime deployment. So the flexibility is there. And if you go to conforma.dev policy, you'll find all the policies that Red Hat has, so that you could use something just off the shelf. And as Joe is going to show you, he's got the AI magic wand, because I don't know Rego. And I'm sure a lot of people are challenged with learning a new language to author this policy file, but now we have a Wiz tool. So I'm going to hand it over to Joe. So it'll make writing the policy so easy, and that's the magic of Conforma. Anybody can now, as he showed with cats and dogs and snakes, you can really get creative with this.
Yeah, I was going to say this kind of builds on what Sully's original question was. You're like, okay, I'm company XYZ and I'm, consuming images from another company, and I trust them, but we really care about security. So I really need to make sure. And this kind of gives you a shortcut to generating the kind of Conforma environment. Let me share my screen.
Trust but verify.
Yes. Okay, so what it is it's a Claude skill called Generate Policy, and it basically what it does, like what I said, is it generates the whole environment that you need to run validation on an image. What you provide the validation requirement. So that's just your natural language spec. So you don't need to write any Rego or anything to get started. You need the image reference, so that's what you're validating, and you need the public key because we do signature verification. And what gets generated is the policy rule, so that's the Rego that you don't have to write. It gives you unit tests, so you know that they're correct, and the configuration, which is something that Stefano showed, where you define which rules run. You can provide additional data for configuration purposes and whatnot. And then the rule data gets generated. So this would be a little different than what Stefano showed. It's the same concept, but it's just in a separate directory and not in line to the policy configuration. And then it gives you the validation command. And I will do a short demo here. Okay, it's covering my screen. Just bear with me for 2 seconds here. Okay, so it does take a few minutes. So what I'll do is I have like an example that I can show. I'll get Claude going on it, and then I'll show one that's already created, and then we'll kind of come back to this and see if it's done. So this one just checks the what registry that what registries that your image uses and if they're valid or not. So you get a chance to go create the Rego rules, and then in your configuration say, okay, I need to make sure that all the images come from these approved registries. So I just have it here, so I'm just going to copy and paste it into Claude.
And I just want to add one thing, Joe. Over there, you have the public key, and I believe that's for verification.
Yes.
The signature. I just want to. I think we covered keyless signing in our previous episode with Trusted Artifact Signer, and Conforma also fully supports keyless signing, so you don't have to necessarily have only private, public key pair. Just want to throw that.
Yep, that's a good point. And I should have been more specific on this. So this is inspecting the SBOM and making sure that the packages that were used to build your image are from approved registries. And you can see Claude is sauteing right now.
My ADD is getting distracted by the prompt saying that it's sauteing.
Yeah. So I can show what it looks like when it's done. So this is an environment that I created beforehand. It just checks, again, it checks the SBOM, but it checks for valid licenses in the SBOM. And you can see the environment it sets up, it copies the key. It creates this policy config, which I'll go over here, because that kind of explains everything. Name, description, and then the sources, which is a list. So it gives, the source number 1 and the configuration data, the policy configs that were, or the policy rules that were created, and then how you can configure which ones are which rules are actually included. And I'll show. So you can see here, there's the unit test for you and the actual policy rules. And this one's quite elaborate. I mean, I was pretty impressed by Claude. This kind of builds on what Stefano was showing. It's got your metadata, which for each rule that it defines, and then the actual rule. So there's a deny rule. It's looping over all the SBOMs, checking all of the packages, and then it's making sure that there's a license declaration. And I won't go over it. It's quite big. We're only about 20% into it. But you can see then also it gives you the actual EC validate image command to run for this.
I think we're getting a couple of characters cut off on the left-hand side there, but.
Oh. And we expect this one to fail. We did not add valid licenses to the image, so I can just show you what that looks like really quick. So you see there's violations. The SBOM is rather large, so there's quite a few of them. So that's a kind of a quick example. We can go back to here. We can see the Claude's done. So this was verifying the approved registries in the SBOM, so that every package came from one. So here's a quick summary it gives you. It gives you the layout that we were just looking at, the directory layout. It tells you what each rule does, which registries I included. It runs OPA test, so it made sure that all the tests pass, and then it gives you the validation command. So we can run that one too. Oh, see here's a kind of a Claude thing. It just inserted image reference there, so we need to actually grab the image.
Doesn't want to make it easy on you.
No, it knows I'm demoing.
And now we are expecting too much from AI, man.
Yeah, I copied it wrong. Let me recopy it here.
You have a double image param name.
Oh yeah. Dash image is there twice. The first one is empty.
Oh, I see. It's still wrong. So Claude needs to work on its copy and paste ability, but so this one we expected to pass. It was a little more simple, and you can see what it looks like. There's no violations. Result was success. And this was a multi-arch image. So here's the actual image down here that we ran validation on, but it, the EC CLI command unpacked it and grabbed the two different architectures that came along with it and validated those also. So that's what I have for the demo. Is there any questions?
None for me. The longer that I have been away from, writing any sort of code, I don't even write Bash anymore these days, really. The more I come to, I'll say, enjoy using Claude for things like this, because it just makes it so much easier. I mean, yeah, there's some minor things, but compared to writing, like you said, all that Rego, that's a completely new format for me. And so having to learn all of that, in addition to, as a software engineer, I can't imagine all of the other things that are going on. I don't know. I have an appreciation for the LLMs and the help that they provide, if not a wariness. I certainly understand.
Yeah, and it wasn't too bad to create either. I mean, this one is specific to just checking SBOMs, but I mean, you can have it check any data input that you want. You can have it check salsa providence attestations. If you have something custom that you use at your employer, you can have it check that. It's pretty slick.
Very cool. All right. Well, Veda, you look like you had something to say there.
Oh no, I just hopefully we'll see some questions and some more. I would say, hopefully in the forum we'll find out.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. So for anybody who's watching, please don't hesitate to put any questions, comments, thoughts that you have into the chat here. We'll be happy to address those as we kind of wind things down. As we speak. There you go. So once the bot created the Rego policy code, how would you roll it out and use it in a real pipeline in your real CI system?
So I can take that. What we do right now is we create OPA bundles, and we push those to a registry. We push those to Quay. And then in that policy config, we reference the bundle. So in my example, it was all local development. So I just had the actual directory path in there, but you can have it point to a bundle. And you can bundle up all the Rego rules and everything in there. And then the EC command knows how to pull that down, unpack it, and then run it on your image.
And Joe, in a pipeline, so you have the build pipeline, but then you'd have some kind of a trigger mechanism to do what we sometimes refer to as like a promotion pipeline or a release pipeline, right? It's a separate pipeline that actually then says, hey, you built this image. Now I'm going to evaluate it based on these policies.
Okay. So in our case, we have we use Tecton. So we have a Tecton task that executes that command. And you can also, if you don't want to build OPA bundles, you can also just have it reference a Git URL too. So if you have your policies in Git, you can use that.
Yeah, I guess that's how I used it. And I think we have examples with Tecton, Jenkins, GitLab, so there are a lot of learning paths on Red Hat in developers.redhat.com. If you look for Trusted Artifact Signer, you'll find those learning paths.
Yeah, developers.redhat.com has a ton of resources. So that last link that I posted for the trusted libraries, there's a huge amount of resources there. I've been battling the how to overcome AI summaries with blog posts, because a lot of times they're just incomplete. And to me, one of the frustrations is like, yes, it might ask me the direct question that I asked, but I learned so much more by reading the other things above and below it and around it as I'm looking at the blog posts and community posts and other things that are out there around the subject. And so it's kind of like when search engines first started tailoring search results to on your specific interest in your history. And it's like suddenly your world gets a lot smaller. And it's one of those, if you don't know to ask about something, you don't accidentally learn it like you used to be able to. And so I know that as somebody who publishes things out there, like, yes, it's frustrating that we don't get as many clicks on the articles, but as somebody who wants to learn stuff, like, I don't like the AI summaries. They're just not, here at Red Hat, we have Gemini. Like, I don't use Gemini for summarizing email threads or anything like that because it loses so much of the extra information that I need that is so valuable. So, that's just me. So for anybody who has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, just kind of as we're winding down here, don't hesitate to ask questions here in chat. If you're not watching us live, if you're watching a recording of the stream, please reach out at any point in time. You can email me, sully@redhat.com, or Jonny, Jonny, at redhat.com. We're also on the Kubernetes Slack. So if you are a member of the Kubernetes Slack, anybody can get there by going to there's a link to join off of the CNCF Kubernetes website. If you want to join there, you can look for the OpenShift users Slack channel there. Jonny and myself and a whole lot of Red Hatters are in that channel. So anytime you ask questions there, you can usually find a pretty good answer relatively quickly. It's a great way to reach out through the community to find us as well. Aside from that, we will be back next week. We do have, again, a guest. We'll be talking about AI/ML workloads in OpenShift. So anybody who is curious about that, one thing to point out there, so we make a bit of a delineation inside of Red Hat, and because there's Red Hat AI and the things that they're doing, which is an AI/ML workload, but then there is OpenShift and running those AI/ML workloads on top of OpenShift. And like, how does OpenShift support and enable those workloads, and how do we do both AI/ML workloads, which we know can often be, shall we say, resource intensive? How do we do that on the same OpenShift cluster that's running other things, and balance resources and manage resources and all that other stuff that's running inside of there? So it's not a it's a more complex topic than it feels like at the surface level. Don't have a specific question at the moment, but learning a lot. Yeah, thanks for chatting there, Luke. We appreciate that. So, Vita, Joe, Stefano, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you joining. I will speak on behalf of Jonny in saying that. Thank you to our audience. We appreciate all the folks who have joined us live. Again, if you aren't watching us live, or even if you are watching us live and you want to reach out, don't hesitate. And with that, if anybody has any last words, I will go ahead and click the outro video here.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, it was really good. Thank you, Stefano and Joe.
All right, Jill. We'll see you next week.
Bye.